Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're looking at a man who literally emerged from absolute obscurity to build the largest contiguous empire in human history. I mean, think about this. His genetic legacy is so vast that roughly 1 in 200 men alive today are his direct descendants. That is mind-boggling. It's this intensely multi-layered story of unmatched leadership, but also absolute devastation. Okay, let's dive into this and explore the life, the conquests, and the massive legacy of Genghis Khan.
Now, the name Genghis Khan is undeniably intimidating, right? It literally translates to universal ruler, which echoes through history for a reason. But the really vital thing to understand here is that he wasn't actually born with this sweeping title. Nope. It wasn't handed down by some wealthy king, and he certainly didn't inherit it through a fancy royal bloodline. Honestly, it represents one of the most staggering underdog stories of all time. This was a title fiercely earned by a young boy from the unforgiving steppes, a boy who had to fight tooth and nail for his very survival, long before the idea of ruling the universe ever crossed his mind.
Section 1. The boy named Temujin, surviving the steppes.
So, starting way back in the year 1162, Temujin entered a world of incredibly harsh realities. Early on in his life, his father was poisoned. His family was essentially cast out, just left to survive the absolutely brutal Mongolian winters entirely on their own. Yet, despite extreme hardships that would have broken, well, almost anyone else, Temujin showed this extraordinary knack for leadership from a super young age. He systematically united the fractured local tribes by doing something utterly unheard of at the time. He promoted his allies based strictly on merit and loyalty rather than aristocratic bloodlines. Basically, if you were good, you moved up. Decades of this fierce struggle and, frankly, brilliant alliance building culminated in the year 1206. Because of this unprecedented unification, he was officially granted the title Genghis Khan.
Section 2. A military mastermind. Strategy over strength.
You might be wondering, how exactly did an army from the steppes manage to topple deeply established massive kingdoms like China and Persia? Well, he heavily utilized fast-moving cavalry. We're talking highly skilled archers on horseback equipped with powerful composite bows, completely outmaneuvering traditional slower-moving armies. But, and this is key, it wasn't just some chaotic rush of horses. His forces were meticulously organized into a strict decimal system, operating with silent flag signals for supreme, split-second coordination. He also heavily leveraged psychological warfare. For example, they'd tie branches to the horses' tails to kick up these massive dust clouds. It simulated a vastly larger army and literally forced enemies to surrender before a battle even began. And this brilliantly illustrates that Genghis Khan was far more than just a fierce warrior. He was a highly calculated strategist who fundamentally reinvented the way wars were fought.
Section 3. Building the Mongol Empire, from China to Eastern Europe.
Now, this immense empire wasn't just about controlling a bunch of land. It fundamentally altered global economics, ushering in an era of massive prosperity centered right around the famous Silk Road. Under Genghis Khan, the fierce stability he forced upon these vast regions, often called the Pax Mongolia, meant that global trade absolutely exploded. It was actually said that a traveler could walk the entire length of the Silk Road with a solid gold plate on their head without any fear of being robbed. Talk about law and order, right? His conquests literally paved the way for unprecedented economic expansion, flowing all the way from Asia straight into Europe. And you know what? This economic boom was entirely by design. The sheer staggering size of his empire directly facilitated all this increased trade. But more importantly, deeply connected cultures began exchanging groundbreaking ideas, philosophies, and game-changing technologies. Think papermaking and gunpowder spreading like wildfire. To actively maintain this huge, dynamic, sprawling empire, he implemented something called the Yam system. It was an incredibly efficient postal relay of horse riders that revolutionized global communication. Seriously, he understood the absolute logic that an empire of that size requires unprecedented connection to survive and thrive.
Section 4. An era of fear. The price of conquest.
While Genghis Khan is so frequently admired for his strategic mind and leadership, the historical facts of his conquests are undeniably harrowing. Cities that dared to resist his armies, places like Nishapur or Samarkand, were ruthlessly and entirely leveled. Over the course of his campaigns, millions of people were killed. The immense loss of human life and the sheer scale of the destruction were so vast that his very name became a global symbol of fear across entire continents. As we analyze this history in this explainer, we really have to neutrally report and honor the immense gravity of these facts. The absolute brutality defined his era just as much as his brilliant victories did.
Section 5. A complex, lasting legacy beyond the violence.
So, the crucial point is, how do we possibly weigh these deeply conflicting faces of his rule?
On one hand, we're looking at staggering destruction, millions of people killed, entire civilizations completely leveled to the ground. Yet, on the exact same scale, we have astonishing innovation. He built a surprisingly strong and organized empire, vastly improved global trade and communication, and even championed highly progressive policies for the time, like the active promotion of religious tolerance. It's like a giant puzzle, and frankly, it is simply one of history's greatest paradoxes.
Which leaves us with a final, rather provocative thought. Was he a ruthless conqueror or a visionary leader? The architect of early global connection or simply the bringer of unparalleled devastation? The truth is, the answer depends entirely on the lens through which you look at history. Thanks for joining us for today's Explainer, and remember to keep questioning the history you think you know.